Welcome back. We're shifting our focus slightly to social networks. On one hand, they connect us globally and instantly. On the other, faceless profiles fuel vitriol and intolerance, and misinformation spreads at the speed of light. So let's confront this head on. How do we reconcile the trade-off between toxic interactions and deeply entrenched echo chambers on social media, and the benefits of global connectivity? And would you ditch it all for a return to a time when, say, facts were more rigorously scrutinized? I'll go first. I would. And I think the proof of that is the fact that I'm not on social media, and I dread the day that my children are old enough to know what it means. John, over to you.
Well, it's funny. A while back, I was discussing with a friend the collapse of Western civilization, and he said, at least in our youth, we saw it at its pinnacle. And I said, no, I think maybe the high point was World War II. Really, the most dramatic vindication of our way of life, including progress. And we won World War II with a swing line stapler, right? And I'll say about Facebook, like if Facebook didn't exist, who would be sitting around thinking, you know what would be great, and then would describe Facebook? I mean, I have to use Twitter to communicate because it's out there. And my general rule is I will not myself tweet an obscenity, nor will I retweet an obscenity. So part of it's just discipline. Don't say something moronic. Don't say something vicious. Just apply a reasonable standard to your own communications, and then reproach even people that you agree with if they are getting down in the gutter. It seems to me that at least we can do.
I've written so many columns. I've done so much work on the concerning side, the dark side of social media, and how our data can be manipulated. And I see all that. And like you, I find myself, I use it less and less. I've tired of it. I don't want my kids using it. At the same time, where I would be an optimist is I think we are a society that's moving more into the realm of becoming makers, and I think that the makers are empowered. So the people who are able to use these tools to find audiences, and if you look at gaming now, the students who are now applying to university have been on a platform like Minecraft since they were 5 or 6. They understand how to build, how to make those communities. And so I think we're treating this with a very, very broad brush, and to really advance in any kind of useful way, we need to look at each platform and each interaction that's going on there. Otherwise, it's hard to really make heads or tails of it in a meaningful way.
Should the responsibility always fall on the user and the parent to manage these profiles? That's always the thing that struck me, because we know when it comes to Facebook or any one of these platforms, Janice, they're addictive. We've all seen the Social Network. There are real issues with addiction to these platforms. We know that suicidality has gone up over the course of the last decade because of the beauty standards, the unattainable beauty standards that are put out online. And why should that responsibility fall on the user?
So first of all, you're completely right, Melissa, that there are really, really negative consequences, especially for young people, preteens, teens, adolescents on social media, because they're so sensitive, they're so vulnerable. There is some good news, though, here again, if we look at the evidence. These, and Raymond, you just talked about it, these social networks are now splintering. There are no, Twitter is in effect fracturing as we speak. And in my view, that's a good thing. They are splitting into smaller networks now. So those communities, yes, self-segregating talk and echo chambers, but the widespread virality and danger that came from some of them is in fact diminishing. And most people who are subjected, frankly, to what I can only describe as the sliminess of much of this, don't stay engaged for very long. At real risk are young people. And why does it devolve on parents? Because everything devolves on parents, always has, always will.
There's also this aspect, Father Raymond, of us seeking more instant gratification and the impact that has on us just being decent human beings.
That is true. I mean, you have the having to wait for a television program to come on is not a huge heroic sacrifice, but it's not instant. And when you have an online, on-demand world,
and you post a spectacle, and then you wait for the rush of the likes
right away. I actually am concerned about, Ramona talked about video games, because although there are some skills you learn, when you have adolescent boys spending 3, 4, 5 hours a day on video games, that means they're not doing something else. It's been almost 40 years since Neil Postman wrote his book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. He was concerned about television. We're now amusing ourselves, and actually, as you talked about suicides and so forth, the consequences are quite severe. It sucks so much attention to things, and because we only have a finite amount of time, it leaves much less time for things like talking to your brothers and sisters or going out to play with your friends. That's a concern, I think.
If I may. We focus on a lot of things that are going wrong at all times. There was always a challenge. What we forget a lot is the concept of spirituality. If people had a concept of self-worth from a young age, they will learn how to protect themselves. There's a lot of issues with having low self-esteem because they're missing something inside. Maybe the way they were brought up as a child. And no matter what age you're in, it doesn't matter if it's digital or technological or even, there are countries that have no technology whatsoever, and yet you see children going out and killing each other and so on. We have missed the boat on that one, and that's where the focus should be. I always believe that when a problem is very complex, you cannot put your arms around it, you have to go back to basics. And the basics is how to develop self-worth in children and let them manage their way through life with a sense of self-worth and self-love and being able to protect themselves as they see fit going forward. You cannot control the future.
All right, stick around. We'll be right back.